In my early teens, I used to post short opinion pieces and blogs on Facebook, and a lot of times the engagement would be really poor. This made me question my self esteem and question even the value of the content I was putting out there. This went on and on until recently. And in a conversation I was having with somebody close to me very recently, the person made a remark about how I would take my time to create content and pour out all my resources into the content, and I would have a few likes. Guys, I felt horrible because it was both true and frustrating. In another conversation, I was criticizing something a public figure had said, and someone replied saying I didn't have the right to criticize the public figure because they have a greater audience than I do and they're more successful. After all, if I am as knowledgeable as I claim to be, why don't I have more engagement with my content? Now, guys, how do you think such comments would make me feel? What impacts do you think the comments would have on my content beyond my well-being? Someone watching this video right now feels dejected because they cannot seem to amass high engagement on their content no matter how much they try. Someone else is internalizing their amassed engagement on their content and attaching their self-worth and success to it. Someone else is subtly adjusting how they present themselves online to maximize likes, shares, views, and whatnot. Someone else is anxious about what to do to gain relevance. Someone else feels like they're just not good enough. The validation economy, as I would call it, is increasingly sweeping our culture by storm. And if you can relate to any of the things I just mentioned, then you've got to sit tight as I take you on a long but interesting ride through the social dynamics, the psychology, and the dire aftermath of everything I just mentioned, with 7 amazing nuggets to empower you with everything you need to know that you might navigate whatever it is that you're experiencing and defy the validation economy. Hello there, I am Lydia and this is the Enlightened Show. If you're just joining us for the first time, first, you're welcome. And this is the Enlightened Show, where we have conversations, impactful and intellectual conversations about personal and cultural topics that are pertinent to adolescents and young adults. So if this is a community you would love to grow in, then start by subscribing and drop me a message in the comment box below. One of the things that renders us valuable and distinguishes us from one another as human beings is our distinct identity and staying true to that identity through authenticity, right? Well, I would argue that we live in a critical period in history where social approval has become a primary currency for determining self-worth and success, courtesy of social media and online interaction, of course, where approval and worth are measured through quantifiable metrics with a system that trains its users to do whatever it takes to be relevant, even if it costs them something pivotal to their humanity. Remember how happy, how satisfied you felt when you threw that joke into your friend group and everyone laughed? How this signaled acceptance and encouragement to make further jokes in the future? Or how you answered that question correctly in class and everyone applauded and the teacher affirmed your intelligence? That right there is social validation at play. Social validation refers to the process by which we seek recognition and acceptance through our behaviors and actions, and it plays a significant role in shaping human behavior. Highlight that. You see, humans are neurologically wired to crave validation, and that is not a bad thing. I mean, who doesn't want to be loved and accepted and approved of by others? I want people to notice me. I want them to validate me. It is not a bad thing. It's how we protect our self-esteem and maintain relational value. Neuroscience shows that the brain uses the same reward system which it uses to process primary incentives like money and pleasure to process external validation. No wonder it can feel so motivating rather than flatly neutral. And on the other hand, an fMRI study on social exclusion shows that the brain processes social rejection similarly to physical pain. How profound is that? Now, this is where things get a little twisted. Traditionally, social validation was limited. It was slower, it was localized, it was temporary. It probably did not include aggressive competition, and it probably did not define people's self worth and success to a large extent. Not until the advent of one tool that would change the mechanics and dynamics of social validation forever. Yeah, you've guessed it. The validation economy is a social and economic system in which social approval becomes a primary currency for weighing and determining self worth and success. This social approval is displayed, measured, and accumulated through visible metrics such as likes, shares, comments, views, followers, and whatnot. So, a person would typically feel confident in themselves and in their content and be perceived as successful by others if they have high engagement on their content, while others might feel less confident in themselves and in their content if they have low engagement and might also be perceived as unsuccessful by others. The validation economy, guys. Social media has made the world a global village with accessibility to the lives of others, but it has done more than just provide us with a tool for communication. It has created something known as the validation economy within it. So, our guy who made such terrible remarks in the beginning, the example I gave, my experience, that person was only reflecting the mindset that has been trained by such flawed social economy. I want you to highlight the words mindset and training because they are keywords in this content. And I'm hoping that if you dragged that same mindset with you to this content, it is going to be reprogrammed by enlightenment. So, as I stated earlier, social validation used to be limited. In your friend group, after throwing in that joke, the evaluation and reaction your joke would receive would be limited. It would be localized, confined to the environment where you made the joke, and it would also be temporary. Your friends will not continue to laugh at the joke forever. They would get over it and move on with something else, not unless that joke is posted on social media. My point exactly. While on the other hand, on social media, the barrier is broken. Evaluation becomes visible and persistent, numerically visible and persistent. The evaluation becomes embodied, materialized by metrics for as long as your account and that post remains to as many people as possible. It is this visibility of metrics that makes people more self conscious and more approval conscious, propelling them to chase more of the validation they can see through metrics. So, the need for and the dynamics of validation has always been there, but social media has done a lot to amplify it. Do you agree? Now, mindsets. The validation economy is known to mess with people's judgment, making it shallow. So, a lot of people would typically judge a content as more valuable according to the engagement it has compared to another. So, if I'm scrolling on social media and I bump into a content that has thousands or millions of views, I am most likely going to give that content my attention because I have seen the engagement it has amassed. Whereas if I am scrolling and I bump into a content that has, let's say, 10 views, I will most likely scroll past. I wouldn't even give the content a chance because I've seen the engagement already. It's going to be poor. It doesn't have that much likes. Or some people would even dash, they would even dash the content a, a their likes or their comments, their likes mostly because they feel like they want to support the content creator, not because of the value they have found in that content, not because they watch the content, but because they are driven by pity to just like it. That sounds or seems charitable, but it's really not. You have judged a content as being valuable or the opposite based on the engagement you have seen, not because you watched it, not because it appeals to you. Also, people are more inclined to follow a trend, assuming that the validation from others on that trend signifies the value of the trend. So, if a dance, a word, a habit, an opinion, whatever it is trending, I most likely would deem it valuable, not for some personal or intrinsic reason, but because of the popularity, because of the validation it has amassed. So, according to the validation economy, crowd equals engagement, engagement equals validation, and validation equals value. Such shallow judgment is also known as social proof bias. But something deeper is happening within the validation economy. The system is actually training its users to adjust their personality based on these external feedbacks. And I'll show you how in just a sec. Story time. A hungry rat was placed in a box containing a lever, and as the rat explored the box, it accidentally pressed the lever, causing a food pellet to drop into a tray. So, after exploring, the rat quickly learned to deliberately press the lever to obtain food. Now, the food in our story is the reward for the lever pressing behavior. The reason the rat continued to press that lever, and the reason you and I will do the same, is because food kept coming out. It kept on being rewarded. So that food acted as a positive reinforcer, which strengthened the behavior, making it more likely to be repeated. This is known as the Skinner box experiment in operant conditioning. In operant conditioning, the aim is to increase or decrease a behavior through rewards and punishments. So the theory states that when a behavior is followed by a reward, it is more likely going to be repeated again. And if followed by a punishment, then it is less likely to be repeated again. This is how behavior is modified and changed, hence behavioral modification. So you need to know this. We've got two operant responses. We've got reinforcement and punishment. More specifically, we've got positive and negative reinforcement and positive and negative punishment. Allow me nerd out for a second because the nitty-gritties of this aspect of the topic are going to lay the foundation for the things I'm going to say about social media. So the positives and negatives in this context do not refer to anything good or bad or moralistic. They're just mathematical terms. Positive means added, negative means subtracted. Yeah, I'm a math genius. So for positive reinforcement, a reward is added to a behavior to strengthen the behavior, making it more likely to be repeated. And for negative reinforcement, an unpleasant consequence is taken away after a behavior to also increase the chances of the behavior being repeated. For positive punishment, an unpleasant consequence is added to a behavior to decrease the chances of that behavior occurring again. And for negative punishment, something pleasant is taken away to decrease after a behavior something unpleasant is taken away to decrease the chances of that behavior happening again. Now, how does this concern you or social media? Not until you realize that you and I are the lab rats being conditioned to behave in a certain kind of way through rewards and punishment, through the same behavioral principles I just talked about. Social media platforms operationalize these same psychology principles through their feedback systems of metrics, likes, shares, comments, and the host of them. Behavior in this context of social media refers to the content you post, and the reward or punishment refers to the feedback you get. For positive punishment, you post a picture, it amasses engagement, your brain registers it as a reward. Now you're most likely going to repeat that content. For negative reinforcement, you feel anxious about being irrelevant or forgotten because you haven't posted in a while. And the moment you post and engagement kicks in, you feel less anxious. Now, you're most likely going to post every time you feel anxious because it eliminates social discomfort. For positive punishment, you post an opinion, you get dragged, and now you're less likely going to repeat a similar content. For negative punishment, you post the content, you receive little or no reward, and now you get discouraged from posting again. However, these principles of rewards and punishment are not universally applicable to everybody in every situation, but I'm here for the cases that it applies to, for the people it applies to, those who are being direly impacted by this validation economy. Behavioral modification. I believe there are implications to the visibility of engagement through metrics, both good and bad. As likes, shares, comments, views, followers are made visible, users are bound to adjust themselves and their content in response to the rewarding or punishing feedback that they receive. On social media, behavior is gradually shaped towards what maximizes engagement at the expense of authentic self expression because your brain is out there chasing dopamine and chasing rewards. And social media doesn't always reward you for being you, it rewards you for copying what's popular, it rewards you for doing what your contemporaries are doing, it rewards you for posting what the algorithm favors. And what's even sad is that some people have come to accept these created and performative versions of themselves online as their true selves, and others cannot tell themselves apart from those on the internet. There's scarcely any distinction and peculiarities because their identities have been warped and overshadowed by the demands of the markets. And the thing about craving validation is that once you arrive at your desired feedback, it leaves you thirsting for more. It always leads to thirsting for more because every time you receive validation, like I explained earlier, your brain releases feel good chemicals like dopamine and serotonin, and this creates a feedback loop, encouraging us to seek more of that brain buzz. So, even when the feedback is negative, it always leads us to the same destination of thirsting for more validation, just with a mix of psychological distress if you have low validation. And boy, these metrics are powerful. You will never understand if you've never experienced it, especially when the result is unexpected, especially when you posted a content and didn't expect high engagement and it just came. The feeling can be so good, incomparable to anything else. Oh my god, that feeling when you realize 100 people liked your post or 200 commented on your post, it is such a good feeling. And of course, it's not the same case or degree for everyone else, for everyone out there. Let's leave neuroscience and psychology for a second and visit real world cases. There was a study that tested whether social media operates like a reward based learning, like everything I just explained in that nerd phase back there. Basically, this study it analyzed over 1 million posts from more than 4,000 users across multiple platforms, and the study showed two things. Number one, individuals showed distinct patterns in how strongly they respond to social rewards. Like I said, it's not the same degree, it's not the same case for everybody. And number two, experimental results confirmed that social rewards influence behavior, even if it's only casual. So, if a teenage girl randomly posts some photos from a vacation that she took, and only one goes viral, and it's the one where she dresses sexually promiscuous, for instance, chances are she's more likely to post more sexually promiscuous photos and content in the future, not necessarily because it's who she is or it's what she wants, but because the feedback she received from a similar content she posted in the past from her vacation surpassed those she got for being casual in the other photos. And deep inside, she craves that same feedback. So the reward propels her to repeat that behavior of dressing and posting sexually promiscuous content, even though she doesn't know that she's subtly being nudged towards a direction, even though she believes that she's in control and she's making an autonomous choice. So, this is the cycle. You post content, you anticipate the feedback, you receive quantified feedback, you internalize it and interpret it as a signal of social worth. Then you adjust your future behavior accordingly to maximize approval. So, you're most likely going to repeat that behavior, to repeat that content that got you the amassed engagement you had the previous time. But Lydia, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with optimizing my content for engagement? There is still something deeper within the validation economy, guys. And I'll show you right after I tell you how the cycle works from social media's point of view. So, from social media's point of view, external feedback is quantified. Quantified approval becomes psychologically rewarding. Reward drives repetition. Repetition stabilizes behavioral patterns. Stabilized behavioral patterns are easier to predict and monetize. This all profits the surveillance based model of social media, which thrives on predictability and patterns. And if you don't know what the surveillance based model of social media is, I'll explain that in a different content in the future because it's a whole topic on its own. So, social media thrives on prediction and patterns. And when your contents are driven by validation, it becomes more easy to predict you. to predict what you're going to post next. Some people who are kind of aware of the validation economy tell themselves that they would not compromise or conform no matter what. But when the punishment becomes greater than the rewards, and when social media continues to immerse them and seduce them with the success of others on the same platform, it might get them discouraged and it might give in, even if it's just a little. I wonder how many purpose driven and value driven people are beginning to adjust their personality and their values because of this pressure to be validated. People will give anything to gain relevance and to maintain it. In such a society in which everything is moved by communication, nobody can defy the pressure to attract public attention. Otherwise, one is forgotten and lost, says Richard Munch in 1991. Hence, welcome to the performance culture. A quick question: when approval is public and quantified, do we become performers? When we seek attention, something else must be at stake. Relevance must cost you something. So now, Irving Goffman, in his book, The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life, posits that life operates like a stage performance where individuals consciously or unconsciously manage how they are perceived. In everyday settings, people shift between front stage behavior, where they perform socially acceptable roles before an audience, and backstage behavior, where they withdraw from scrutiny and relax those performances. The backstage is where contradictions, doubts, and unpolished aspects of the self are allowed to exist without reputational risk. Arguably, we live in one of the most performative times in history, where individuals create their personas to fit online standards, where moments are no longer lived for what they are worth, for personal satisfaction, but to garner attention and be approved. Where people live the fakest of lives to be noticed, where creativity and authenticity is increasingly being stifled through the need to replicate what the trend is and what is socially rewarding. Now, guys, this is where I'm headed. This is the heart of this conversation. When I could not amass great engagement on my content, I wanted to change how I delivered my content so bad. I wanted to even change the kind of content I create just so I could get attention. It wasn't anything bad, it just wasn't me. I considered delivering my contents the way I saw other people deliver theirs, those who have higher engagement. And there's nothing bad with copying people or being inspired by them. We're talking about the motives here. Maybe if I could tweak this or that about myself, my content, I could have what they have, the pleasure of recognition. The search for validation creates a tension between authenticity and conformity. As I said, when we seek validation, when we seek relevance or attention, something else must be at stake. You will be highly tempted to present an idealized version of yourself, to cater your content to fit the preferences of your audience rather than expressing your true self. The erosion of authenticity in the quest for validation is exactly why it's becoming increasingly difficult to tell people apart from each other online. Maybe just through their faces, if even through their looks, people are beginning to look the same way. Am I the only one who thinks so? It kind of seems like everyone is turning into the mass produced duplication of the validation economy. People's tastes are being shaped by trends. You didn't know you liked what you think you like until social media liked it for you, until social media told you that you like it. And of course, people still somehow retain their uniqueness even when they follow trends. But even the uniqueness seems banal and meh because it is yet insidiously being overshadowed or suppressed by following trends and copying others. A lot of people compromise on their values, on their personality, on their interests because they long to be accepted. They do not want to be left behind in this competitive social economy. They leave their identity behind to conform to what is popularly accepted and what is socially rewarding. And when I talk about conformity, your mind might travel to a question of immorality, but that is not what conformity is. Conformity in my books is abandoning what you stand for to stand for something else. And that thing doesn't have to be inherently bad or wrong. It's just not you. And that already makes it kind of bad for you. That scenario of the girl on a vacation who posted her pictures that I painted, did you know that it didn't have to be a sexually promiscuous content that she posted that amassed engagements? That's not what makes the behavior wrong or inappropriate. That's not what makes her wrong. That's not what makes any of what she did wrong. It could have been a video of her dancing to a trending song. It could have been a video of her being mindlessly funny, and she could still have fallen into the trap of inauthenticity because they aren't things she independently, willfully, and personally wants or enjoys. They're not content she would create besides these external influences, and such content would thus be a question to her identity if there are things she would rather be reluctant to post if she perceived that the engagement will be poor. So the question is, will I still post this kind of content if the engagement will be poor? If not, then I'm most likely being influenced. I'm most likely adjusting my behavior negatively based on the feedback. So it's not a question of whether what she posted is good or bad. It could have been anything else. It's a question of whether she's largely being influenced by the feedback and adjusting her behavior in a way that overshadows or compromises her values and her personality, her distinct personality. You see, low engagement can be a true test of character. It's easy to think I am doing what I'm doing for myself. I am posting things I'm posting for myself and I'm independent when there is a crowd watching me, when I have people cheering me on, when I have engagement and there is little to no reason to drift. But we will only confirm that to be true. We'll only validate that when there is no one watching, when there is no one cheering me on. If I will continue on that course, or if I will switch courses, this is how low engagement can be a true test of character. And guys, this isn't, of course, this is not to place content and people with low engagement on a higher pedestal than those who have higher engagement, and see those who have lower engagement are more moralistic and they're more authentic than those who have higher engagements. No, that's not true. As a matter of fact, people who have low engagement might be the ones chasing validation the most because they lack it in the first place. Now, somebody is probably thinking, but Lydia, do you then mean that we should not listen to our audience and give them what they want? Are you saying that we should not post the kind of content that works for us? Are you saying that we should not align our content based on the needs of our audience, based on their taste, and adjust our content according to the feedback we receive? No, I'm not saying that. After all, feedback and adjustment is necessary for improvement. You listen to your audience, and this is the golden rule. You listen to your audience to the extent to which you do not compromise on your values. Your value is the measuring stick. Keep in mind that your values and your identity should create your audience. Your audience is not allowed to create your values and your identity for you. And if that's the case, you're probably on the wrong path already. The validation economy makes a fertile ground for comparison and competition. The system is especially challenging for those who are purpose driven. You're going to constantly have to war with that tension in every content, that tension between authenticity and conformity. You're going to war with it in every content, and you must win. You're going to have to choose between impression and impact, between performance and purpose, between direction and distraction, even between quantity and quality. It's easy to stick to your purpose, guys. It is so easy to stick to your purpose and your values when you're validated. But when you're not, that is when your strength and purpose is truly revealed. Those who have garnered a significant amount of attention and whose identity revolves around external validation would inevitably develop unhealthy dependency for the validation through attaching their self worth and their success to the validation. So every time they post the content and it gets high engagements, it reaffirms their self worth. It makes them feel confident and happy and good about themselves. But when it's the opposite, they feel threatened and anxious and in a rush to post again to maintain their worth or relevance. And continuous exposure to such experiences can result in heightened self consciousness, insecurity, and social anxiety. And for those who seek validation and recognition, whether passively or actively, but are still struggling, the absence of validation or the presence of negative feedback can lead to feelings of rejection, lower self esteem, and social anxiety. And prolonged exposure to these negative emotions may contribute to psychological distress. And the other consequences of the validation economy, in my opinion, as previously mentioned, are social proof bias and shallow judgment, duplication of personalities according to trends, the erosion of authenticity, destabilized identity, peer pressure. Please add more for me in the comment section if you can think about more. Metrics do not always define people nor the quality of their content. It doesn't reflect your worth. The algorithm only rewards certain expressions, guys. Have you noticed something? Are there times when you've watched a content or you've seen a content creator who is doing so well, who is so unique, but they have low subscribers and followers? I just experienced this a couple of minutes back. This person had 2,000 followers or has 2,000 followers. And I was like, what? You should have more than 2,000. And on the other hand, have you seen content and content creators who are not really doing well, whose contents are mediocre, but have very high engagement and followers and subscribers? Exactly. This shows that the metrics do not always define the value of the content of the person. I know I'm valuable. My content is valuable. I have come to accept this finally. Me and my content are valuable with or without the external validation. So, whether or not it comes, I feel happy and safe and confident in what I already know. The confidence is intrinsic, it is not attached to external things and external motivation. Influencer culture is kind of teaching us that our content and us are not impactful or relevant if we don't have a crowd, if we don't have thousands and millions of views. It makes us look down on the singular soul who is enough to be the reason why we created that content. So, what if I have 10 views? I am proud of my 10 views. You're 10 human beings. Those 10 human beings are worth every energy, every ounce of energy, every ounce of resources and efforts that I put into my content. Do you know what it means to get the attention of a human being? Talk more of getting the attention of 10 people, even if it's just one. One soul is important. Sometimes people create content and they have thousands of views and millions of views. And many times, I'm just saying theoretically, in some cases, the thousands of people might not even be impacted by that video, it might just be only one. So if I don't have thousands of views, but I have just one view and it's that one person who needs the video, then isn't it worth it than having thousands of views and still it is only appealing to one person? You get the point I'm trying to make. So yeah, that one soul is important. That one soul is valuable. And that one person is worth your content. So start treating your one view, your two views, your one like, your 5 likes as valuable because they are. Now, let me tell you a short story to solidify this. Once upon a time, I was scrolling through my YouTube channel and deleting videos. Not because these videos were not valuable or because something was wrong and they were botched. No, but because I didn't get the engagement I wanted to have, the engagement I anticipated. And so I began to delete these videos because of that. And I stopped at one video and I found a comment that changed my mindset forever. Here's the comment. Guys, because of this comment, because of this one person, I didn't delete that video that day and I stopped deleting videos. How much more people would have been impacted by the other videos I deleted if I had not deleted them? How much more people are impacted by my videos but are not showing up? You're not commenting, you're not liking the video, but you're being impacted, you're hiding, and I'll just go and delete the video unbeknownst to me that somebody is being touched, somebody is being impacted by that video, which leads us to the next nuggets. Okay, guys, unpopular opinion. I believe that the most impacted people in a content are the ghosts. Who agrees with me? Please tell me somebody agrees with me. Because it happens to me. This is something I experience nearly every day. There are contents I don't like I don't leave a thumbs up on. There are contents I don't comment on. but I love and I enjoy and impact me. This is not an excuse to not like my video or to not comment or to not engage. There are hidden people who are being impacted by your content. Trust me, I've met people several times on the road, on my streets, who stop me and be like, Lydia, oh my gosh, I watched your content. It's so nice. You did this, that. And I'm like, you didn't even comment. You didn't even comment on my video. Like, they don't make comments. They don't like your contents. They're not there visibly. You cannot quantify them through the metrics, but they are watching. And in many cases, they are the ones who are the most impacted by your content. I learned this while researching that the metrics of social validation is easily quantified, but they do not capture the complexity and the depth of human experiences and qualities. The comment section can try, but I don't think it goes that deep. A post can have thousands of likes and views and millions, but it still does not capture the complexity, the depth of that content creator or that post. So these things are yet shallow. Establish your social media for value. Outside value, your social media will inevitably be subjected to trends and performance. So determine your value systems and your brand objectives if you have one to better manage external influences. It's the same thing I did. Enjoy the approval, but do not always internalize it as objective. People might like your content and it might turn out to be a poor content. People might hate your content and it might turn out to be a peak content. People have different preferences because they are people. So do not always internalize anything people see as objective outside your values and your identity. Your values should serve as an anchor that grounds you in your conviction. You'll never find fulfillment, security, and stability outside your true identity. People think success online is determined by your engagements, by your followers, your likes, your views, and whatnot. But I think that's a skewed idea of success based solely on that which is visible. True success in my books is the ability, it is the strength, the courage to remain faithful to your values and your identity in a competitive and performative space like this, regardless of what happens. And this is what people don't see. People see the likes, but they don't see it when you've compromised. People see the less engagement, but they cannot see it when you're faithful to your values and your identity. But this invisible barometer of faithfulness is a greater is greater for measuring success than the visible metrics. I believe social media is a grave minefield of competition and craving, and the ability to stand tall in your small engagements when all hell breaks loose, even knowing what will give you clicks, but choosing to defy it to give people you. That right there is success. It's the rare kind of success that people don't see. And if you remain, if you persist, when you defy the validation economy, the validation will come. Even if it's slow, the engagement will come. And of course, this does not mean that accounts and content and brands should be as strictly strict as mine, as strictly serious as mine, to be value oriented, or that people must be absolutely free from trends to, be authentic. That's not what this means. I know you know that, right? Right. All right, guys, we've come to the end of this content. I had an intriguing time researching, scripting, and then finally getting to share this with you guys. And I hope you can say the same about watching the content. And don't forget to check the description box for the links to the studies and materials I mentioned in this content for further reading. Thank you so much for watching. I would love to hear what you think in the comment box down below. Stay informed, stay enlightened, and I will see you in the next content. Bye.